league. Kirk and Bubba back for another year. ESPN King of College picks in, make it clear. Winter in the weight room, summer on the practice field. May or January trip to MI-80, what it yields. What's the deal? Who's for real? Which team will take a bite of the orange? Who's got the Heisman Trophy in their sights? BCS controversy where they finally settle in. Put the best teams on the field, forget the rhetoric. Thought of me, fire up the grill, baby, here we go. Passion for the pigskins in my bones, it's in my soul. Buckle up your chin strap, let's get it on. Blow the whistle, couple days on the road to game day. It's official. Yeah!
And the Sooners' Adrian Peterson. Now, Morency is the heart and soul of this Cowboy offense. His ability to take a simple play designed to go up the middle with his vision, his lateral quickness, and his speed, he can take this simple play and turn it into a big play for the Cowboys. Speaking of former Cowboys, Thurman Thomas, same play, designed to go up the middle, ability, speed, vision, cuts this play to the outside, big play for the Bills. Now we're going to look at Adrian Peterson and his ability with the vertical running style, a slight dip in the shoulders, to mock the face that says you have to have a low pad level in order to be successful. Eric Dickerson, check him out. Vertical running style, slight gangster lean in the shoulders, breaks 1, 2, 3 tackles en route to doing his thing in the NFL on a Hall of Fame level. Now, today's game, Adrian Peterson, obviously, when you mention his name, there's the Heisman talk. He's on many publications, has much hype, much coverage because he's good and he deserves it. But in this national televised game, Morency has the opportunity, if he performs the way he's capable of and helping the Cowboys beat the Sooners, he can catapult his name from the outskirts to the epicenter of this year's Heisman Trophy race.
I like it, Rocket. Outskirts to the epicenter. You can see that Morency has less hype, but it actually has slightly better statistics than Adrian Peterson does. 9 touchdowns for the 24-year-old former draft pick of the Colorado Rockies. 19-year-old Peterson, more on him coming up in the show. Now, because of the focus on Peterson the first half of the season, the passing game has gotten loose lately, and Mark Clayton, number 9 for the Sooners, the all-time leader in receiving yards after the catch. Very big guys in this game against Oklahoma State secondary. A lot more coming up. They can keep it going. A&M hosting Oklahoma.
Ooh, that'd be great. College game day. Go.
Next week.
Maybe. You never know right here.
It happens right here. Crunched it up.
Never know.
On Campus is presented by Outback Steakhouse. No rules, just right.
Inside, Jason White warming up, the first Heisman winner to return in 13 years. He'll try to feast on a very mediocre Oklahoma State pass defense. He has really begun to heat up in the last couple of weeks. Of course, White Sooners, one of 7 unbeatens the last week of October. That's a lot. There were only 3 a year ago, and all 3, Oklahoma, Miami, and TCU, finished with 2 losses. 2 years ago, there were 8. Half of them lost the same week, about this time of the season. Upsets begin to happen. Happened back in '99 as well. And only once in the BCS era, 99, you see that right column there. There were 3 unbeatens at the end of the regular season. That year, Marshall was one of them. They were not a factor. What about this season and the months to come? If you set aside for a second Utah and Boise State, they have the best chance to go undefeated, but no chance of getting to the national championship game. Let's look at the other 5 right now. Is the hour at hand when logic finally gets pushed aside and complete chaos reigns?
The signs are there. A lunar eclipse, the Bambino curse reversed 3 days before Halloween. Maybe, but it's a long shot. Upsets happen. A&M over Oklahoma 2 years ago. Minnesota over number 2 Penn State in '99. UCLA and Kansas State fell on the final Saturday in '98. History conspires against the unbeatens with mathematics, which brings us to this coffee shop in Indiana and the oracle of football math, Jeff Sagarin.
When you say if a team is favored by X points, they have a Y chance of winning, that comes from the concept of the normal distribution.
Whoa, wait. Let's back up. 5 BCS unbeatens, 22 remaining games between them. They'll be favored in 21 of them. Why can't we have a bunch of unbeatens?
Each individual game, the favored team should win, but when you cascade it out over 22 games, it's unlikely that all 22 of those games will go for the favorite.
How unlikely? About 3 chances in 1,000 of having the Trojans, Sooners, Canes, Tigers, and Badgers all perfect in the regular season. For example, Auburn over Ole Miss by 16 points.
Which means if you're a 16-point favorite, you have roughly an 84 to an 85% chance of winning that game.
Sounds easy, but then you have to multiply the probabilities of each game. We did, and presto, the laws of math say USC is the only single team likely to stay perfect, a 55% chance. Oklahoma and Miami, about 35%. Wisconsin, 20%. A 1 in 5 chance of beating Minnesota, Michigan State, and Iowa. Auburn, with Georgia looming, is the longest shot, 19% probability to stay unbeaten. Jeff, final thoughts?
Anything can happen. Nothing's a certainty. That's why you play the games.
Thanks. And hey, if probabilities are defied and the unbeatens remain, at least we have human judgment. It'll all be up to the voters to sort it out.
Everything that matters to us as Americans is at stake in this race.
And the decision is in the best of hands. It is in the hands of the American people.
It's a red state down here, if you wonder. Hey, I got my calculator out, Lee. Let's have a little fun. Let's start multi probability. You don't buy any of this, do you? You can smash
forget
the
about that.
calculator.
Forget it.
This goes with the computer.
Yeah, forget it.
See you
All
later.
right.
That's a brand new calculator. Hey, this is the big question, though, for fans around the country. How many unbeatens will we have at the end of the regular season? So we welcome in our marathon men in the studio, Trev Albertson, Mark May. You guys, I know it's a debate here. What do you think? End of the regular season, how many unbeatens still standing, guys?
Well, first of all, Chris, I got to tell you, the problem with people who think there won't be any unbeatens is the fact you're going to coffee shops and talking to computer guys to tell you who's going to win. I mean, the bottom line, Mark, is when you look at this season, I think if you take out Utah and Boise State, minimum of 4 teams that go undefeated, maybe 5. I think the difference this year, guys, is if you look at these teams, look at their quarterbacks, senior leaders, poised leaders, and you look at their schedule in the past, when we saw teams marked that were undefeated, we'd say, yeah, but they really haven't played anybody. All these teams have really been tested, and I think have passed important tests so far this year.
I think there'll be a minimum of at least 4 teams that go undefeated. And the reason why is you look at the way that they're playing right now. Forget about history in the past. You think these kids are sitting around saying, gee, 4 years ago there were 8 teams undefeated in week 7. 9 years ago there were 6. They don't care. The bottom line is how they're playing football at this time. And here's another thing. You look at Boise State. If Utah would not be undefeated, we would be talking about Boise State as the BCS buster.
No,
what are your thoughts, Coach?
No.
Well, first of all, I think 5. 5 right now, yeah. USC, Auburn, Miami, Utah, and Boise State. The only 2 question marks in my mind is Oklahoma, because they play here, and Wisconsin running the table in the Big Ten. And of all those teams, I think Boise State is the only team that doesn't go to the BCS. Boise State doesn't go. You got to worry about Oklahoma and Nebraska. I mean, Oklahoma, Wisconsin, those teams are dangerous.
Keep winding them up here, don't you? I'll say there are 6. If we're going to include Utah and Boise, I think there'll be a total of 6 when it's all said and done. And I agree with Trev and Mark and Lee. Forget about the computers. Forget about history. If you look at the teams and you look at who they have to play, tell me who's going to beat Miami. I know Virginia, but forget about that. If Miami shows up, they're only going to beat themselves. Miami's okay. USC's okay. It comes down to teams like Oklahoma, Wisconsin, and Auburn. Can they get through 1 or 2 tough games? But, guys, I really think, Chris, that you're going to see 6 at the end of the year if we're going to include Boise and Utah. And I think Utah's going to be outside of the BCS if they finish 7 or below.
I'm sure you buy lottery tickets and play roulette. You have to understand what you're saying is
advocate for this.
I'm saying what you're saying is it's a long shot. It's very radical. If it happens, I'll salute you. Right. This would be a BCS nightmare, though. You got unbeaten teams spread throughout 3 different bowl games, and in their wisdom, of course, the president decided not to have a championship game after the Big 4 bowls. Just add another bowl. That's a mistake. This would be pointed out by that. So, guys, if there's a glut of unbeatens, how would you rank them? How would you rank them 1 through 5? Who's going to play in the FedEx Orange Bowl?
Well, you know what? If we're right, Chris, and if you look at it and all those teams do go undefeated, I think you'd have to be honest and say, look at who these teams played and who they've beaten. Under the scenario, if all 4 or 5 of those teams in the BCS conferences go undefeated, I think Auburn should play Oklahoma for the national championship. If you consider who they've played and the fact that they play in the SEC and Big 12 championship games, they would have deserved it the most, and those 2 teams should meet in the Orange Bowl, Kirk.
Trevor, talking about chaos, is if Auburn does run the schedule, and we all agree the SEC is the toughest conference, and they get through the SEC championship game, and they're 12-0, I don't know how they're going to leapfrog Oklahoma or USC in the polls. And the fact that that is 2/3 of the BCS, I think it's going to be Oklahoma at the end of the year playing USC in the Orange Bowl for the national championship. Mark, what do you think?
Well, Kirk, I'll tell you what, it's a combination between what you and Trev like. I like USC and I like Auburn. The way that Auburn's playing right now, they're a healthy football team. Most of the starters have only played 2.5 quarters because they've had such a dominant lead in most of their games this season. And you look at USC, everybody says they don't play a championship game. Well, they played in the BCA championship game early in the season, the kickoff classic. They played their 12th game against Virginia Tech. What do you think, Coach?
Mark, I agree with you 250%. USC is the only football team in the nation that has beaten 3 top 25 teams. They're in it. Now, Auburn, 12-0 in the toughest league in the conference in the nation, wins the title game, and they're 12-0. And they don't go, there'll be another civil war because football is important in the South. And if the Southern champions doesn't get in that game, it's all over.
It's important everywhere.
It's not as important
in Los Angeles.
No,
yes, it is.
It's more important in the South than any place in the country.
Trev and Mark, thank you. The four of you guys had 3 different matchups in yours. And what the world needs, what we're clamoring for, is another poll, obviously. So we have the college game day consensus poll. The 3 of us, Trev, Mark, Rocket, Jill. Here it is. USC, 5 first-place votes. A tie between Auburn and OU. Auburn gets the nod because they have a first-place vote. Others receiving votes, the mighty Noles and Wisconsin, with Cal slipping in there at number 5.
That's it, Cal. Get in there.
We might make that a weekly feature.
That one vote is mine for Auburn.
Is it? That's your first place vote?
That's my first vote.
All right. A lot of focus in this big rivalry game on the freshman for Oklahoma, Adrian Peterson. He really is the biggest star among a crop of impact freshmen all over the country. Came on late last week to keep alive his streak of 700-yard games. Only Emmitt Smith and Marshall Faulk have begun their careers as running backs so dramatically. The kid from Palestine, Texas, 2 months into his career, is being labeled a once-in-a-generation back, and he might be. His buzz has even eclipsed Heisman winner Jason White. But not many have heard from Peterson. The cameras have been kept away until very recently. Now Steve Cyphers has the story of a difficult journey marked by determination in the face of crisis.
They call him AD, a nickname his dad tagged him with when he was 7 years old. AD. Oh, what a great move. All day. That's how the kid could run. That's how his father taught him.
He always told me, when you go out there, leave no doubt, that you play, you play at your hardest and you left everything on the field.
He would not be denied. He would not be denied.
Where it comes from, I don't know, but I tell you, he's got a determination about him when he gets a football unlike any kid I've ever seen.
As his high school coach in Palestine, Texas, Jeff Harrell marveled at Adrian Peterson. Now he's Bob Stoops' freshman phenom.
What a run by Peterson.
1,000 yards in his first 7 games. Heisman Trophy good. 19 and showered with attention, seemingly all day.
The only concern I have about it is that it doesn't overwhelm Adrian, that he's allowed to be a young man to grow in it, to enjoy his college experience, and not allow everybody else to take a piece of it and nothing's left for him.
Too much has been taken already. When Adrian was 7, his older brother Brian was hit by a car and killed while riding his bike.
It's like, when that situation occurred, it's like, things was just going downhill. And, a lot of times I feel like, giving up.
That was a very trying time for him. He was just young, and it was like a part of him that was there always wasn't there anymore. So it's like a big part of him just left.
His father left 6 years later. Convicted of laundering drug money, Nelson Peterson was sentenced to 9 years at the Federal Correctional Institute in Texarkana in August 1998.
We went to games together, we went to movies together, we took AAU basketball trips together. We did everything together. So when I left Adrian and got incarcerated, that was a major, major blow to him. It was like a piece of his heart was taken from him and was just thrown away. My dad was a wonderful person, and he always, he raised me to
to always do the right things. You know, it's a situation that he got caught up in, and I just, you know, paying the time. So, you know, that don't make him a bad person.
Even though I'm incarcerated, I still have to be a father. I still have responsibility out there. So we haven't maintained a close relationship.
But from a distance. Poor grades kept Adrian off the varsity football team his sophomore year in high school. But his parents kept pushing, coaxing, demanding better. From prison, Nelson offered encouragement on the back of a treasured photograph. At home, Benita, now married to Frank Jackson with children of their own, worked at and prayed for a turnaround.
And all of us bear the responsibility of raising Adrian, and I think that's something that had to be worked through also. You know, it's kind of hard for three people to be parents, you know, because, you know, one wants to do this and one wants to do that.
By the end of his sophomore year, AD got the message.
His grades came up. He began to be on the A&B honor roll, which was, you know, a big hype for him, you know, and he even came back and said, Mama, you said, you know, that I could do anything if I put my mind to doing it. It's just all in doing it.
You know, she kept me going. You know, I always told me, you know, put God first and everything else fall in place.
This kid is special. Oh, he is.
Overcoming the odds and outrunning fate, Adrian hasn't let go of his loss. He's clenched it in his fist, in his heart, holding on to his father and his brother, Brian.
I feel like, you know, I'm tired. I'll be like, just feel like stopping or giving up. I just, you know, think about him, you know, my dad, and this little thing like that, you know, that motivates me to keep doing what I'm doing.
Adrian Peterson hopes his dad can watch him play. His father is scheduled to be released from prison in April of '07. He hopes it could be a year earlier to watch Peterson play his junior year. AD got his speed from his mom. She was a 5-time state champion in track. He prefers, he says, the inside running, loves the tough yards. And that message from Dad in the back of the photo, very important. Time is running out. You know, Peterson, from his very first carry of his career, has run like there's a sense of urgency when he's got the football. He ran wild against Texas. Can the Cowboys stop him today? Oklahoma State, meanwhile, they had to replace their three-headed monster from a year ago. Tatum Bell is gone, Rashawn Woods, Josh Fields, all those guys are gone. The newcomers have stepped up, but Les Miles told us last night, the time to baby those newcomers, especially quarterback Donovan Woods, is over. You can't be cautious in this game today. 48 completions all season. He knows his quarterback's going to have to make some plays to beat that defense.
Absolutely, because Oklahoma's got a great defense, and to beat that great defense, Oklahoma State needs to put together a drive like they did in the fourth quarter against Missouri. They mixed the run and the pass up. That's the only way they can move the ball against Oklahoma. Vernon Morency, number 33, averages 6.1 per carry. Here's an important stat. He protects the football. He's only had 2 fumbles in 199 carries. Donovan Woods hits DeJuan Woods, his brother, and a key play in that fourth quarter. Now, again, we just say it over again. The only way Oklahoma State can cause problems to that defense is to run and pass and go for broke. What do they got to lose?
Right.
This is one of the best football teams in America. Go for it.
Yeah, and without that legitimate pass game, Oklahoma State early in this game, they're just going to try to run Morency right at the Oklahoma defense. The Sooners like to stem. They move around a lot. They'll run Morency right at him and see if they can try to be more physical than Oklahoma. The problem is eventually they have to mix in the pass. You have to have balance to be able to slow down and make an attempt to try to stop the Sooners and their defensive scheme. Guys, we've been talking about Dan Cody for the last 2 years. This time he lines up at linebacker. Look at him bull rush from the defensive end position, go right through an offensive tackle. He'll be all over the field today trying to put pressure on Woods. And then you'll see Brodney Poole. Keep an eye on this guy. One of the best safeties. The NFL scouts love Brodney Poole. For Oklahoma State to have success, they need the balance. Without the balance, you lose the game. That's why the key to this game is Donovan Woods. If Donovan Woods can have a little bit of the passing game to just slow down Bo Pelini's defense, they've got a shot. Otherwise, it's a long day for Vernon Morency.
Redshirt freshman in a tough situation. Les Miles hopeful he can grow up in a hurry today. Miles, by the way, a protege of Bo Schembechler. Got that same intensity. We asked Miles last night, you know, how is it between you and Stoops? Two very intense guys, share in the same state, bitter rivalry, and Miles just says, it's an intense rivalry. That's all you have to say.
A lot of respect, but
let's go back inside the stadium to Jill Arrington. Jill?
Now, this Oklahoma State is a big rivalry, especially especially for the Gundy brothers. Now, Cale Gundy, he's the running backs coach for Oklahoma, and Mike Gundy, he's the quarterbacks coach for Oklahoma State. The family rule this week is no talking football. Now, Oklahoma State was not happy this summer when they found OU built into some stadium construction. That's right, a Sooner fan, part of the construction crew, used darker bricks for a wall that he built with the letters OU. Well, those letters have since been stained, and it's disappeared. Former Heisman winner Jason White, this year he gets a vote for the Heisman. He says he's going to have his teammate Adrian Peterson checked off on his Heisman ballot. What a guy, Chris.
That's right. All former Heisman guys get that vote. And White is going to vote for his backfield mate. Will enough voters? Well, folks here want to make him VP. We'll come back. Final breakdown of this game. Selections of this and all the other games as we count down to kickoff. Purdue and Northwestern coming up next on ESPN. But Bedlam selections and all the other big games straight ahead from Stillwater.
As the unbeatens took to the road, would distance make them stronger, or would the unfriendly confines do them in? USC, Miami, Auburn, and Utah all hoping for another perfect Saturday. And can Florida bounce back after Bedlam series? You know, Les Miles, I wouldn't say he had Bob Stoops' number, not after Oklahoma pasted the Cowboys 52-9 last year, but he had 1, 2 of 3 in Bedlam. There's a little bit of a rivalry going on there, and you just don't walk into Boone-Pickens Stadium. Well, you better be ready. You better strap up your headgear and be ready to lay a lick on somebody. But then again, Mr. Heisman, Jason White, finds a new target every week. It's Mark Bradley.
Yeah, Mark Bradley seemed to be the guy. They were looking for matchups. Who can we beat? Mark Bradley. Here's the guy once again. Jason White looks left, goes back right. Who it is? Mark Bradley, 5-yard touchdown pass. Find that guy you can beat. It was Mark Bradley all day.
A couple of mistakes in special teams got the Pokes back in it. This Donovan Woods touchdown came after a muffed punt. Then the Sooners trying to punt themselves, and Blake Ferguson can't handle the snap. Grant Jones will fall on that squirting pig eventually. Oklahoma State with a 14-7 lead, and here's Mark Bradley. Mayday, is this tipping it to yourself or staying with it?
Staying with it, but you can tip it to yourself. But a wonderful job by Mark Bradley coming down with it and have the presence of mind to take it to the sidelines and say, catch me if you can. Take another look at this. Look at Jason White standing tall in the pocket, confidence in his offensive line, but Bradley staying with the ball, coming down with it, and knowing what to do with it when he catches it.
Bradley came into the game with 3 career touchdowns. He already got 2 in this game. Do I hear the hat trick? Hockey might be on strike. Hat tricks are not. Bradley's 3rd touchdown today, 6 of his career, 4 of them coming in the Bedlam game. And Mark Clayton, who had 1 career punt return before this game, shows he knows what to do with it when he gets the ball in his hands. Housing it from 50 yards out. Antonio Perkins hurting. It's why Clayton is back there. And then after a Cowboy touchdown, Adrian Peterson answers with a signature moment.
He's not just the best freshman running back. He's the best running back in the nation. He proved it today. Another 200-yard game.
Number 1 for the Heisman.
By Adrian Peterson. Yes, number 1 for the Heisman. The best running back in the country.
35-21. Peterson, as you mentioned, over 2 bills again, but Donovan Woods to DeJuan Woods. DeJuan Woods went over 100 yards receiving, catching that pass from his brother. That set up Vernon Morency. He goes in from 2 yards out, and the Pokes of Les Miles hanging around. 35-28. It's 38-28. Woods to Woods. You know, DeJuan Woods, the first receiver to go over 100 against the Sooners since Rashawn Woods, their other brother, did it to them 2 years ago. And now, little option pitch, Morency takes it in. He was held just under 100 yards. First time that's happened this season. Now 38-35 game. Jason Ricks for the tie and overtime, and he's wide to the left. Chagrin in Cowboy land. Boy, they gave them a fight, but Oklahoma survives and advances. I know with the BCS and the computers and the polls, you need style points. Sometimes when you face a tough game foe like the Pokes, you just need to win the game. That's what the Sooners did. Chris Fowler, Lee Corso, and Kirk Herbstreit were there to witness.
All right, Reese, thank you. Well, Miami, lucky to beat Florida State, lucky to beat Louisville. Luck runs out in Chapel Hill. No one saw this particular loss coming, but Miami had lost so much talent. The Hurricanes really haven't been the Hurricanes this season, let's face it.
Well, first of all, you got to understand, you got to give North Carolina a lot of credit because they really come out and played well, had an excellent game plan. But Miami's situation is this. They must bring their A game to all of these new ACC teams because they've been waiting for years to get a shot at teams like Miami. And North Carolina, you got to give them credit. Miami didn't play well, but North Carolina deserved to win the game. Kirk, they outplayed them in almost every area of the game.
Yeah, John Bunting and his staff and these players deserve all the credit in this big win for North Carolina. Lee is exactly right. Miami and Virginia Tech and eventually Boston College need to understand that in the ACC, week after week, it's more about team speed than it is about what you saw in the Big East, where it's a little bit more about being physical. And they're going to find that out the hard way. North Carolina won this game with more determination. They took Miami's best shot in the second half, and they got it done. That Miami defense is struggling big time.
Do they shut down the Fire John Bunting website in Carolina, or is that still going? He's, after all, he's beaten NC State, Tech, and now Miami at home. Oklahoma, speaking of lucky, you know, a fingertip incompletion by Oklahoma State, a missed field goal. The Sooners very close to going down right here.
There's only one thing that keeps Oklahoma from winning right now, from what I've seen, is Jason White. Today, they would have lost this football game if it wasn't for his senior leadership and throwing for 3 touchdown passes. He reminds me of Greg Krenzel when he was a quarterback at Ohio State. He wouldn't let Ohio State lose. This guy, Jason White, is a good leader. I'm telling you, he won a Heisman last year. He's a good player. He's still a terrific quarterback.
Having that veteran leadership for them and the balance that they have on offense, their offense isn't in question. And you look at the rest of their season in a big game with Texas A&M, it's the Oklahoma defense. They're not always getting the pressure on opposing quarterbacks, and when they don't, they're vulnerable to the pass. Their corners right now, without Antonio Perkins, I think are very average. And if they don't get pressure, Reggie McNeil next week will look forward to facing that Oklahoma defense.
Meanwhile, in Jacksonville, after the ball game, Georgia quarterback David Green begged the official for the football. He finally gave it to him. He carried it around the
affected on the road, but they get the 5-point win. Plenty of stars and stoppers on Saturday. We start with the stars, and one of the stars was Mark Bradley. We had 3 touchdown catches for the Sooners against the Pokes.
Great concentration once again. Look at it here. Mark says he tips it to himself. Actually, he just stays with the ball. Nice catch there for Mark Bradley.
On the turf of the Palouse.
Wow, Reggie Bush is fast. He's quick.
Even quicker than I thought before. 57-yard punt return. Man who was third in the nation in all-purpose yards, and boy, nobody was better than Braylon Edwards on this Saturday.
It's a great job of going up, getting the ball, great body. It reminds me of Larry Fitzgerald last year. Remember, we'd go up and jump over everybody?
And take it away from the opponent. Just take the ball away from the defender.
Now the responsible opposing view. Dominic Foxworth tops the Wyatt Sexton pass. Look at this, guys. A diving grab by Raymond Custis coming out of the frame and into the picture. North Carolina State and Clemson, Jay Davis and Ryan Clark, and he gets annihilated by Tremaine Billy. Head on a swivel. No! Clean hit, too. Didn't go in there head first. It was nice.
Good analysis, Reese.
Well, I just wanted to make sure. Sometimes you think the hits are, you know, if you leave with the head, aren't good. How about the freshman running backs again on Saturday? Mario Thomas, he's leading the nation in rushing for North Texas. He scored 3 times, goes for 218. Peterson and Hart over 200 again. Hart's been over 200 3 consecutive games for the Wolverines. What a find he's been. And Danny Ware going over 100 in the final, presented by Pontiac. And we enter the weekend with those 7 undefeated teams. They had to go on the road. It was tough, but most of them able to survive with the exception of Miami. And perhaps the best place to be on this particular Saturday was at home, which is where Wisconsin was. They had the bye week and remained perfect, and Boise State won on Friday night. Last football Saturday of October, and we've whittled the list of the unbeatens a little bit, but still a lot of talk and discussion about who might be the best of those two. And joining us from Stillwater to open up some debate on that and other issues, Chris Fowler, Lee Corso, and Kirk Herbstreit. Guys, good to see you out there. You saw a great football game today. One of those teams remaining unbeaten. Trev, among the teams is still without a loss. Who are the best two?
In my opinion, I think USC and Auburn are the 2 best teams in college football, because when I look at these 2 teams, I think they're complete. I don't think there's any holes on both sides of the ball. And Kirk, you watched Oklahoma, and I see a pattern developing, just like we saw in Miami, that pattern developing on their defense. I think the pattern developing with Oklahoma is in the middle of their defense, the defensive secondary. There are some holes there and issues there, and that's why I don't have Oklahoma as one of the 2 best teams.
You're exactly right about this Oklahoma defense. Seeing it in person, after watching it on tape the last 2 weeks, it's becoming more and more evident. I think USC has separated themselves. They're almost like a machine every single week. They're up at the top. And then after that, I think you can find weaknesses with every other team that's unbeaten. I will say, based on potential, I still think Oklahoma, if they can correct these issues defensively because of the balance that they have on offense and the special teams league, I would say Oklahoma and USC still the top two, with SC's clearly the #1 team.
That's exactly what you said this morning.
Yes.
This morning I said USC, and here's the reasons. They're the only football team in the nation that's beaten 3 top 25 teams. They take care of business every single day. And Auburn goes to work every day and takes care of teams. They bring their A game no matter who they play. And remember, they beat Tennessee at Tennessee. And that, to me, was a very impressive win. So I got USC and Auburn as I had this morning.
Yeah, you know, Auburn has been the steadiest team. They had the one scare against LSU. You need luck when you have to complete a 4th and 12 pass to win the game, but they haven't had that down effort yet. They intrigue me. I'm going to keep USC #1. Obviously, Oklahoma and Auburn are right there neck and neck. It's a tough call right now. You got to watch Auburn and respect what they do. And if they continue to win out, you got to have them in the top 2. I think.
Still tough way to go.
I don't think there's any question about Mark. What do you think?
Well, I'm like Coach Corso. I'm not going to waver from this morning and have it as a fluid situation like some people on the set. Coach Corso and myself this morning said USC is up here, everyone else is down here, but the next closest team is Auburn. We predicted that those 2 teams would be in the Orange Bowl. Now, some people to my right over here had Oklahoma and Auburn if you go back to this morning.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
Did I change my mind already?
Yes, you did.
Well, that's been a long day.
It's been a fluid situation.
That's absolutely right.
But, you know, this time of year, I don't think that teams ought to be penalized by this time of year if they have those difficult games.
Right.
One thing that I was impressed with about Auburn is that for a while it looked as if they were going to have that sluggish game, and they turned it on late, and they put away Ole Miss.
See, what happens, guys, is when you get to this point in the season, when you get to almost November, at the end of October, now all of a sudden, you, like Kirk mentioned earlier, you start reading the hype a little bit. You start reading those newspaper articles, and you have the burden of carrying that target on your chest. Now, not only are you an undefeated team, and the other thing, don't forget, I've been there as a player. You get to November, you're beat up, you have lots of injuries. Very important now as coaches assess their teams. Start backing off on those full padded practices, start running the guys less, try to get down the stretch without, because all those guys are beat up. The injuries are starting to take a toll.
You know, that's one of the things that's going on with Miami, too, on both lines of scrimmage. And, Kirk, the sleepwalking issue that we've talked about a little bit, Auburn has not been susceptible to that, but some of the other teams have. Coming out sluggishly, sometimes you get away with it, sometimes you don't. And why is it happening with highly ranked teams? They know the traps are set by these other teams. Why are they coming out sluggishly? The Miami's on the roads, the Florida State's on the roads.
Reese, I think it's a lack of experience and lack of leadership. The coaches can talk all they want about you have to respect your opponent. You have to really be ready to show up and be ready to play. But players know. You're recruited by some of these same players you're competing against. There's a reason you go to the big-time schools, and there's a reason that there are other players that are going to, quote-unquote, inferior opponents. So as a player, sometimes you just show up. You go through the motions, and in Miami's case, they showed up at Chapel Hill. You know, every guy on that team knew that if they showed up today, they were going to win the game. And that's why, Chris said it, they're going to be upsets.
I've been a long time without saying I told you so. I would never stoop to saying I told you so. I wouldn't do that.
Come on, Fowler.
I would not do that.
I can say I was with Fowler on that, though.
Yeah, now you are.
Yeah, that's right. I was.
We know upsets, but
you know what? The chart says Miami had a 91% chance to win the game. It was a 3-touchdown favorite. But sometimes, you know, the probabilities are always that. You're with me on that calculator, Lee. You saw this coming.
What happens when the more you win, the bigger target you have on your back. And no matter what the coaches say, you get that target. You got to bring your A game every week. Perfect example came out here today. There's nobody in America going to tell me that Oklahoma State's players are as good as Oklahoma. They got guys Oklahoma does on the sideline better than the Oklahoma State guys. But Oklahoma State guys wanted it more. They wanted this game more. Oklahoma won the football game, Reese, but let me tell you something. They didn't win it with heart. They won it because they had superior athletes. And Jason White, the quarterback, was the difference in the game.
And we talked about the way that Oklahoma State was able to gain a little confidence after a couple of plays in special teams. Mayday, how do you guard against this? How do you guard against the team sleepwalking early?
Well, it's up to the coaching staff. It's always up to the players because those are the guys that are on the football field, but it's up for the coaches to get them ready, not only physically, but mentally, to make sure that they're sharp every week and make sure the players realize each and every week what's at stake, Trev.
And let me just point something out. For all those people who are against a playoff, here's what they'll point to. The season is a playoff. Every single game is important. And you know what? It is exciting. When North Carolina can beat Miami, when North Carolina can have 545 yards of total offense against Miami, hey, that means something. That's why the regular season means something.
And you know what? I think we've set up a topic for next week, maybe. Should there be a playoff, or is this regular season playoff good enough for you?
Pretty good.
Hey, by the way, guys, didn't Utah destroy that same Carolina team that just beat Miami?
Yes,
didn't
they
put
did.
669? I just thought I'd bring that up.
And didn't Baylor beat that A&M
Yeah,
team?
Baylor beat A&M now, too. So all of a sudden you hang your hat on the Aggies, and you go down to Floyd Casey Stadium. You walk out with an L.
Walk into Floyd Casey.
Hey, we'll see you guys next week.
All right. Well, I don't know where after that game. We don't know where we're going.
Play. South Carolina just trying to get to half. Brent Schaefer got a little time and converts to 3rd and 18 with a 55-yard completion that led to a Tennessee touchdown before the half. They tied it at 8, rolled away with a 43-29 victory. Michigan down 2 touchdowns against Michigan State late. Brian Thompson recovers the onside kick. Chad Henne through a touchdown pass a couple plays later in triple overtime. Wolverines come back to beat the Spartans. Florida and Georgia. News was starting to tighten. 24-21. Gators trying to do it to the Dogs again, and David Green finds Reggie Brown 51 yards. That led to a touchdown. Georgia ended up putting the game away. 31-24 the final. And Florida State, Maryland with the Seminoles coming back. They closed within 3. Joel Statham to Josh Allen, and Allen does the rest. 72 yards he would take it, and Maryland would hold off the Seminoles. 20-17, that proved to be the margin. So those are your nominees for the Pontiac. 4 tackles for loss and moved past Trev Alberts on Nebraska's all-time tackle for loss list.
Oh, did he really?
Yes, he did. He did.
How about the fantastic freshman? Need I say more? Adrian Peterson, 249 yards.
Matt Leinart, 23 of 28, guys. Another unbelievable performance. I get tired of giving them out to Matt Leinart. And Reggie Bush, punt return for a touchdown.
Spencer Havner from UCLA, 16 tackles as they beat Stanford. And how about Chad Scott from Carolina? They're upset of Miami. We're back next week.
Heisman.